Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, in our ongoing study in Paul and the Faithfulness of God by N.T. Wright. We're going to look at our recall triad now for our lesson we just completed on the Kaiosune to Theou, the righteousness of God as the fulfillment of confirmed covenant. Let's begin by looking at block 1. We're going to take a look at the concept of invocation or epikaleo. Saul had been invoking Yahweh for rescue from elongated exile, meaning that they were in Jerusalem but still oppressed by Rome, so still feeling like they were exiled. There was an anticipation of Yahweh's return to Zion. For Saul, however, there was an awareness that Israel had failed its vocation. Saul did realize that Israel had not become the light bearers to the outside nations. In fact, later in Romans 2:23, Paul even realizes that Israel had dishonored God by not reaching out to other nations. So he even said they had dishonored God through turning inward rather than outward toward other nations to be the light of God's truth. But for the Jew, for the Pharisee, the covenant began with the petitioning, the invocation for rescue. Now in block 2, this invocation for rescue next led to recalling the covenant and rehearsing in order the steps of the covenant. Yahweh's word in the Torah had sustained Paul. As a Pharisee, Saul was familiar with the prophecies of Isaiah and the prophecies of Ezekiel, who pronounced a coming messenger of peace, Yahweh's messenger of peace. Therefore, Saul, before Damascus Road, was already prepared for his apocalyptic moment of encountering the resurrected Christ. Because he was already practicing the invocation for the return of Yahweh to Zion, and he was already groaning in travail, because there was still that pregnant hope of waiting for Yahweh to return to Zion. So he had both aspects of the pregnancy of hope and the prophecy of Ezekiel. And those were imprinted upon his heart. The scriptures were very much imprinted upon the heart of a Pharisee. So the travail of pregnancy and the promise of return both prepared Saul's heart for apocalyptic moment. So if we look at block 3, we're going to take a look at the renewal moment, the answering invocation, and the recollection and rehearsal of covenant led to Kaiosune to Theou, the righteousness of God. Damascus Road apocalyptic created apocalyptic markers for Paul of the cross, the resurrection, and indwelling spirit. Cross, resurrection, and indwelling spirit became the 3 apocalyptic markers for Paul. The apocalyptic ingathering of the elect had already been inaugurated in Jesus Christ. And it was the faithful, agape, self-giving obedience of Christ that had done what Israel could not do. Christ took on the failed vocation, took it into himself, into his cross, his resurrection, and fulfilled the vocation of God's plan of salvation that Israel was unable to fulfill. And so we see that Christ was the faithful Israelite. He gathered the vocation into himself on the cross, and the Spirit of Christ filled Paul with new language for a new confirmed covenant, for a new ke kuramenon diatheke, a confirmed covenant that had its own new language. Examples of this language are circumcision of the heart, the indwelling notion of the Spirit, the impartation of righteousness through the ascension of the Son of Man. These are new concepts for a new confirmed covenant in Jesus Christ. The circumcision of the heart. The Jew was now the Jew in secret, the inward Jew, the inward covenant Jew, the inward covenant believer, the new Exodus people, and they were empowered by an indwelling spirit. So there was the indwelling notion of spirit. Righteousness is gained through the justification of Jesus Christ alone. Through Jesus Christ, new covenant people receive righteousness through his ascension to glory, to the right hand of the Father. So the recall triad is epikaleo, enthuomeomai, and dikaiosune to theou. Epikaleo, enthuomeomai, and dikaiosune to theou. Invocation, recollection, and renewal as the righteousness of God. So we've got a great recall triad here. It's a beautiful lesson, but I think one of the greatest things that I learned here is that the theodicy question that we hear a lot about is, we have debates about it. They're all over the internet. How can a good God allow the bad to happen? Why does the bad happen when we have a good God? And we debate it with abstract argument, but for Paul and for Jewish believers, the theodicy question was lived out by invoking God for rescue, by rehearsing the covenant in the order of its giving, and then anticipating the renewal of covenant as God's righteousness being vindicated. So they lived out the theodicy question. They lived out the theodicy answer. And I think that's a great teaching, that theodicy was lived out by both Saul and later Paul. The relationship to God was a living, dynamic living out of answering the theodicy question. Why are these things happening? Why is this happening? Everything is related to Yahweh. All of creation belongs to Yahweh, and Yahweh is equated with Jesus Christ for Paul. Therefore, all creation is in Jesus Christ. So the theodicy question is answered in invocation of Christ, recollection of Christ, renewal in Christ, righteousness in Christ. That's going to wrap up our recall triad for pages 795 to 820.